Welcome to the Psychic Guys. Today we welcome the Reverend Dr. Anna Lee Stone. Anna is a psychologist specializing in spirituality and religion who's written on the intersection of trauma and adverse childhood experience with transpersonal psychology, personal development, and magic. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I've got so much that I'm keen to talk to you about. I don't know what we're going to have to run out of time and do a two-parter because
I have a very burning question before we start.
Oh,
How does
go
one
on.
become a reverend doctor? Are they from two
Well-
separate institutions, or?
Yes and no. I have been ordained twice by two different institutions, and
Does that make you very reverend?
I
or
think we
reverend,
should
reverend?
abbreviate that reverend squared.
yeah, if you saw the actual credentials, I can't list them all because it's ridiculous. Like all of this back here, that's not all of them. There's 3 missing from there. It's a lot. But the PhD came with also an ordination from that university as well. So that was,
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard of getting an ordination with your PhD. That's a nice bonus.
well, it's a seminary, so that's what they do. That's the whole point. It's churning out new religious leaders, I guess, and doctors.
So what was your PhD?
Spiritual psychology, and I'm actually working on a second one now in transpersonal psychology.
Wow. So that must be quite a open-minded, forward-looking seminary to be doing spiritual
Yeah.
psychology.
Well, it's an esoteric interfaith seminary, so it is geared towards
Cool.
the occult.
Wow,
So,
I wish I had one of
unless you
those
find
local
it.
to me. I don't think we have such a thing in the UK.
It's new. It's
amazing.
newer. Yeah, just like my third master's degrees in consciousness studies and transformative psychology. That program was amazing, and that's with National University.
I know we wanted to dig into other stuff, but that's just opened up a whole new line of questioning. What does a spiritual psychology program focus on? Is that like helping people thrive, or like looking at cultural practices? And well, you'll know the answer. Why don't you give it?
Yeah. So traditional psychology, right, is going to be pegging people, putting people into boxes, diagnoses that are geared towards medication. Right. So, because that's how we do it here, especially. So spiritual psychology is looking at the whole person and taking into account their cultural background, spiritual beliefs, because I'm in the States, and if I went to a therapist and I said I saw a ghost, or, I had this, kind of experience that was, I don't know, like anomalous, they would label me a magical thinker, right? And that's a negative that has a very negative connotation to it. However, in this field of psychology, which is, albeit it's new, we look at all of that stuff, like how are you raised? What are your belief systems? Because the DSM-5 has added some new sections that now include religious experiences. And so if a person comes and talks about that, you're not supposed to label them magical thinker anymore. So they've actually started to delineate between the two.
But only if there's a religious
Right,
or
yeah.
spiritual component, right? So you
Correct.
can have exactly the same kind of weird experience. And it's
Mhm.
like, if it's religious, you're not crazy. But if it's not
Yeah.
religious, oh, you're crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, do I agree with that?
Great
No.
system.
But that is exactly correct. Yes.
So you grew up a Southern Baptist, right? And are you part of a religion now?
No, no. I mean,
No.
I practice a plethora of I take from a lot of different things for my spiritual practice, but mainly what I guess most people would call witchcraft, I guess, for lack of a better term, but more of I don't know, kind of a more ancient form of religion, I'd say. But no, I do not associate myself with any organized religion anymore.
But the reason I wasn't expecting you to say yes, to be fair. The reason I ask is because, like, when you have that definition of is there a spiritual or religious context that makes like this okay in the eyes of the DSM, is witchcraft a delusion, or is it a legitimate spiritual path? You know, is that part of the problem, or does that check the box that says no, this is religious or spiritual experience? It's an
Oh,
interesting
well,
gray
both.
area.
Both. That can be both, especially with you know, the prevalence of the witch talk or the YouTube witches that are going around hexing people for looking at them sideways. You know, just all of that kind of
Mm.
nonsense.
Oh,
Little bit of
my favorite
narcissism.
witch talk drama.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my favorite witch talk drama was when they hexed the moon.
Oh my God! Don't
Um,
give me. I can't with that. That
I
that's one of.
consider myself more of a moderate. I only hex if they look at me diagonally.
Okay. I mean, this hex that's the phenomenon of the baby witch, right? And I hate that term. I would.
mm.
It's just I'm very happy that people are talking about it now, and it's not so stigmatized. However, it is becoming more stigmatized in a different way, where it's become kind of a bit cheesy, a bit trendy, very trendy, actually. Everybody's a witch now, you know. Um, I which I don't know how I feel about that, but I do think that there's a lot of irresponsible practice out there, and people that are like charlatans, for lack of a better term, that are preying on young people and trying to get them to, I don't know what for what purpose it's for, but they're acting irresponsibly and kind of making us look bad. You know, go figure. Like, I guess we're used to that, but it's just in a different way now. Instead of it being like pitchforks and, you know, an angry mob, now it's, you know, people going, oh God, witches. Oh, those guys again.
From
Yeah.
capital offense to cringe
Yeah.
over the
Mm.
course of a
Perfect.
century or two.
Wow.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly. It's very cringe. A lot of it is. And so, you know, I've been um trying my best to kind of shift that narrative and like take it back a little bit, you know, and dispel some of the erroneous information that's out there with the little videos here and there I'll post here and there. But, you know, I'm one person. So I can't undo all of it. But, you know, it is nice to see that it's more mainstream and not as many people are freaking out about it anymore. So that's a good thing. But it definitely can lead
I,
to delusion. I think the delusion part is so there's okay, so we did my partner and I did a study recently about this exact thing about the mindset of the magician or the witch or the wizard, and I administered 8 different assessments between the two of us to see what a baseline would be for like what are we, you know, what's the average kind of mindset of the person that's attracted to this. And I mean, I knew ahead of time we that most people are going to be a little bit above the norm, you know. Maybe not clinical level, but like above the norm in magical thinking, you know, as it's defined now, anyway. And um, and maybe some dissociation, um, delusions, things like that. But there's a level, right, that's acceptable, and then there's a level that's not, you know, that'll impede your life. And yes, I do see a lot of people, especially the young ones, that are getting onto that kind of spiritual psychosis that's happening, you know, where everything's a
you
sign.
could argue that psychosis is actually like a necessary stepping
Mhm.
stone
Yeah,
in the path, you know, not like full blown get hospitalized psychosis, but
yeah,
like toying with that territory of
yeah,
meaning and the boundaries of reality. And you
yeah.
kind of like we have to do that kind of going inwards thing where you start to you know go inwards and then it's like, oh wait, everything out there is in there, and like where's the oh, and it does screw your head a bit, right?
I
I
think
think we
that's
have to
the
go
initial.
through that in a
Yeah,
safe
that's the
way, right?
initiation. Yeah, that's like your first initiation, right? Like you get that kind of, you know, it's overwhelming. Maybe you've experienced something and you don't know how to reconcile that with science, with the narrative that you've been raised with. If you're religious, especially that is going to be a problem. It was for me, a huge one. And you know, that can be a problem. And if you're not strong enough mentally and you know, emotionally, it can lead you into a bad place. So I always say like it's all cute and fun and games, but it's not. Um, it's very serious, you know, because you can if you don't come out the other side, you know, it's not good.
Mm.
So definitely, it's both delusion and then also it's real too. You know, at the same
I
time.
think you know we have to be concerned about the people who suffer these really serious negative effects, but at the same time, I think they are in the minority, and most people will not go down that really extreme path of suffering serious harm. And we can look at it as like getting suckered in by witch talk or the new age or some crap that doesn't work and is ultimately useless and unfulfilling. It's kind of a learning experience that you have to go through as well to kind of develop that discernment and be like, wait a minute, is my life really better? Am I kidding myself? And to kind of develop that ability to look at yourself a bit more critically, which is not something that's taught in school. It's not something common day to day, is it? Like
It
maybe it's
it is
becoming a
not.
little bit more usual, but
I mean, I'll tell you this. I teach critical thinking in all of my classes. When I was a high school teacher, I would incorporate that into any and every course I taught. I've taught 31 different classes of different subjects, and I didn't care what it was. I'm gonna find a way. And I got pulled into the administration one day and told to stop it. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? They're like, you're telling the students to question what you're telling them. And I'm like, absolutely. What do you mean? Like, I'm coming at them telling them stuff they've never heard before. They look at me like they don't believe me. I say, fact check me, vet me, do it, and that's a problem. Why would that be a problem? And I got warned a few times. And then I left that to go teach at
did
college
they
where
ever
that
answer
doesn't
the
happen.
question? Why would that be a problem?
No. But it was
Have you
obvious.
um have you ever come across John Taylor Gatto?
Mm-mm, not that I'm aware of.
Oh, that way off topic, but yeah, you should check him out if
Okay.
yeah, the education system.
Oh, it's
He won like this is so off topic. He won like teacher of the year because he was like the education system's designed to brainwash and stunt
oh
and warehouse children and is a
my gosh.
disaster. So in his classes, he would just like get the kids to be like, okay, don't tell anyone. I'm gonna let you pursue your own passions and your own projects, and I'm gonna like hide this from the school district. So all these kids were achieving incredible things because he was
Yes.
just like letting them. And
Hmm.
then they were having these incredible outcomes. And they were like, wow, you're the best teacher ever. How did you do it? And he's like, I stopped being a teacher and just like
Yeah.
trusted the children to pursue their passions and supported them, And they were like, oh no, we don't like that suddenly. But he'd already won the like best teacher national prize at that point, and then kind of obviously fell foul of the powers that be as a
Yeah.
result. But he's done some quite compelling stuff on that. If anybody even really needs convincing that the education system is um not doing what we hope it would do.
Yeah. He sounds like my new
Anyway,
best
that
friend
is
because I
huge
tell my
off
students that
topic. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, just give them his name. Be like,
I
it's like
told my daughter,
yeah.
she's 9, and I said, listen, I know you don't like
Mm,
school, and I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a joke. It's there to make you into
yeah.
a factory worker and prepare you for a crappy life
Yep.
of being rat raced around and having no time to think about what you'd like to do, what would fulfill you. Like it's just about paying bills and having enough time to eat, sleep, ball, and do it all over again.
Mhm.
And so then when I had parent teacher conference like a month ago, her teacher was like, she's under the impression that the school. I'm like, yeah, I told her that. Like, I was straight up. I was like, I did. I'm like, you know, too. Don't pretend like it's not true. I'm like, but I knew if she has to stay in elementary school, I get that. Okay, but I'm just telling you, like, let's not lie about it. And she's like, I wish more parents were like you. And I'm like, I'm a teacher. She's like, oh my gosh. And I tell all my students this. I do. And I got in trouble for it. That's why I quit teaching high school. I was like, I'm not doing this. College doesn't care. Like I can say whatever I want, and tell them, the truth, tell them that stuff, and half the class believes me, the other half doesn't, and that's okay. I'm not trying to convince. I just give the information. Do with it what you
Wow.
will.
Well, I never taught kids. I don't know if I could put up with it, but
Probably not.
like
It's a
maybe
lot.
it could be super rewarding. But the people I know who are teachers are just like terribly depressed because
Yeah,
they spend their day doing crowd control,
yeah,
and
and
they
parent
don't really
control.
get to.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, certainly teaching. I teach people remote viewing and psychic stuff and woo-woo personal development, magical things. And like the first thing I say is don't believe anything anybody says, especially not me. Right? Just don't.
I mean that's
We'll teach
just
all
the
the stuff, but don't
standard.
believe me. Like you
Right.
shouldn't. Anybody who doesn't include that at the beginning, they're up to no good.
Exactly. Anyone's that's promising, guaranteeing, these things because yeah, like if I would have never worked with somebody that isn't questioning what I'm saying because then they don't
Hmm.
have critical thinking skills and they don't have the ability to discern between reality and fantasy. Like, so I don't want that, I don't want to be responsible. Um, so yeah, like I feel that completely. uh, this path of like magic and psychic ability can really be you know, life changing for people when they realize maybe that they have an ability. I don't know about you, but like for me, I didn't realize that other people couldn't hear what I hear or see what I see until pretty later in life. And then, you know, then I was like, oh
Did
shoot,
you had the ability from birth?
yeah. I mean, I guess like
Ah.
that's what my, you know, family says, that I was always talking to people that weren't there, and they, you know,
Mm.
I don't remember that personally, but yeah, as a kid, I've always been haunted, like haunted. My house, every
Mm.
house I've lived in has been haunted. And this is not just me. This is people around me that have witnessed all of it. Every house, like it, maybe 18 months goes by, no, nothing when I first moved, but at some point starts back, and people don't believe me until it happens. And then they freak out and like leave, you know, or stay because they're interested, but mostly it's scared. You know, people get scared. I'm like, hey, yeah, how you think I feel? It's terrifying. Like it still scares me to this day. Like I get not scared, startled rather, startling sometimes.
Mm.
The visuals, hearing is not that hard, but seeing is like, whoa, you know, I'm at home by myself at
What,
2
just seeing
a.m.
things
Yeah,
in your
like
space?
why is there a man over there? You know, quickly like
Oh wow.
just a
Yeah,
flash.
no, I don't have that. Like it's I had some anomalous experiences as a kid, but it wasn't like constantly always on and always happening to me. And then I think I like really shut that down and kind of went down the materialism, science and engineering route and like
Yeah,
completely repressed it. And
yes,
then was in my early 30s and had like a spontaneous awakening. It was like, oh my God, what the hell? What's going on? And then went
see?
out looking for scientific ways I could investigate this and got into remote viewing and was like, oh shit, my entire worldview is wrong. Wow. And like now I can, through like 6 years of training really hard, I can turn it on and off. And like,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like, you know, if you get a camera lens and you can adjust the focus, and it's like putting physical sight out of focus and whatever else into
Yeah.
focus. It's not just like overlaid where things are gonna suddenly be like, oh, there's some dead guy
Oh,
there.
see,
Like that
that
does not
happens to
happen.
me when I'm hyper focused on something else, right? Like that's the only time it happens. So if I'm hyper focused on like
Interesting.
writing a paper or something, that
Mm.
tends to be when it will happen, and it'll just be like real quick, but enough to get my attention, and I'm like, oh, you know, and that's it. It's nothing more than that, but it's still startling, you know,
Mm.
because it's not expected. I wasn't expecting it. But
Do you think
yes,
you're getting into a bit of an altered state by hyperfocusing the paper? Maybe you're up in
yeah,
like
alpha state.
gamma brainwaves or something.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
alpha's like just chilling out in front of the TV. You know,
Well,
we're in
it
alpha all
depends
the
if you're
time.
like in that synchronized state, you know, where you're kind of just in the flow state, right?
Flow state, yeah.
Yeah, that's when that happens. And so when I'm doing research, that's my drug of choice, is like doing nerd out research and like writing papers. That's what I do for fun. And I love it.
Nerd.
100%. But
No, that's great.
I did the same thing. I had experiences as a kid that scared me a lot, and I was like, nope, science. And I went and became a scientist. I did that for 20 years. I worked for the government of the United States. I worked under DARPA contract, Department of Defense, 8 times. Like I was under 8 different contracts. I worked on some crazy projects that you guys might know about. Actually, you know, the silent talk with DARPA for the soldiers. They can telepathically talk to each other. That one.
No,
Um,
that's cool.
Oh, do tell.
it did not work when I was working on it. So that was in
Was it
2012.
real telepathy or was it like
No,
techno
no. Like
computer
it was,
stuff?
is an implant brain
Mm.
chip. And that's what my lab
Oh,
lasted. Yeah,
gross.
it is gross. If you Google
So
that,
gross.
just Google that, you'll see it. It'll pop up, and there's like a soldier with a giant port sticking out of the back of his head. And it was just so that they could relay information in real time out in the field without their communications like narking them out. But like when I was there from 2012 to 2014 working on that specific project, it did not work. We had not made it work yet. But now I don't have my NDA anymore. Like that's expired, or my clearance has since passed, and now it's just out there for anyone to read about. But I
Well,
focused on
speaking of
science.
telepathy, let's do like a screaming handbrake turn and talk about the telepathy tapes. Because
Yeah.
before we came on the air, we were talking about
Yep.
how this is maybe moving the needle a bit for like average people becoming more aware of this stuff.
They are, yes, and these tapes are fascinating. I just started watching them just very recently, but I mean, what do you think? What are you thinking about it? Like, what do you think the value
It
is
sounds
here?
legit to me. it would be, it's quite implausible that this is a fabrication, I think.
Yeah.
But obviously, I'm coming from somewhere where, you know, I'm very comfortable with the fact that telepathy and similar effects are a scientific reality. So it's not like a worldview shake and jump for me to be like, oh, well, that's really cool that these people are really good at it. Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing?
Right.
Whereas I think if my worldview precluded any kind of non-local information transfer like that, then I'd be like, well, something must be wrong. You know, like somebody must be faking it. They must be delusional. There must be a problem in there. You know, without actually being able to identify a problem.
Yeah, it's just
But
chance.
just being convinced that
It's
there
just
was one.
coincidence.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's just
that.
freak.
This is that's just a yeah. Oh, of course. They're gonna get it right this many times just by probability. Yeah, no.
Yeah, they
Wasn't
get it
that?
right like 100% of the
Yeah, like
time.
the kid's 100%. There was that one kid that was like every single thing was accurate, like instantaneous, like really fast. So it's like wow. But yeah, there's gonna be naysayers regardless. But I do believe people that are familiar with autism will be maybe the most um, affected by, impacted by that because it'll probably answer some questions for them.
Do you think it will validate a lot of people's experiences that they'd been not, you know, been repressing or not talking about?
Yes, I mean, think about how many times this has likely happened. Okay, it's just let's hypothesize like that it happens quite frequently to the parents of children like this, and who do they talk to about it? You know, they go to a therapist, they're going to be labeled unstable. Something's wrong. They're taking
Oh, it's
drugs.
very stressful.
It's going to be dismissed. We are great at dismissing people's experiences that we can't relate to and we can't quantify in a lab. You know, and that's unfortunate because this is where science has lost its soul. Like the point of science was to investigate the unknown, right? And we have become this.
And well, and the point of psychology was to investigate the soul.
Right, right. And
You know, we've kind
we're
of
getting
gone
there
backwards
now.
since William
We're coming.
James.
Well, we're coming
Yeah.
back. It's starting to, yes, but it's starting to shift, right? Because like when I tell people at work now that I'm researching psychic ability, I don't get laughed at anymore. I get, oh, really? Well, what's going on? That is
Oh,
such a change in the last 5 years. That's changed.
wow.
Mhm.
Very cool.
It is. I mean, I work at a public college. Like this is, it's not the fancy, funded one. And they supportive. And, I even got one of my articles published in the journal from the school that just started. So that's cool. I mean, I'll take anything I'll get like right now to help kind of shift it. But I think that the tide is changing here because I think a lot of us have just come to realize that there's just like a lot of stuff that science can't answer for us, or partially answers. And we've experience things for so long and they have no one to talk to. And finally they see something that they can relate to and they're like, oh my God. So like, I know for me, like when I see something like that, I'm like, oh, I get this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Right. And so as a spiritual psychologist, I'll say this, like when people
You
come
still
to
worry?
talk to me, if you're not asking if you're crazy, you might be. This is the kind of bar. Like if you got to make sure that you're checking in with reality. So when something strange like that occurs or anomalous occurs, you should be asking like, did that just happen? Like, am I okay? Just to make sure, because if you're just going with it without any kind of looking at it from different angles and trying to debunk it at first, right? But there's a point where you can't. If you can't, you can't, right? Because I always tell people, we thought that we didn't know what made us sick before we knew what bacteria was. Then we couldn't see it, but it was there, right? We know Bluetooth exists because we use it all the time. Can we see it? No. There's things out there that are very well accepted by everybody that we can't see. So it's like, how can we go from or people that are religious, like there's a guy in the sky watching everything you're doing, taking account of all your sins, but you don't believe in ghosts or like psychic ability. How does that where do we I don't it's interesting to me how there's that cognitive dissonance there of like this is true but nothing else is true. So now we're starting to see science shifting with quantum science, quantum mechanics, quantum physics coming in and non-locality and entanglement. These things are huge because it explains a lot.
I think these are poking holes in physical reality, aren't they? But I think that there does seem to be a limit beyond which the quantitative tools of science are not really useful, because we're getting into the spiritual, right? We're getting into consciousness itself, which you know, you can't look at it with the tools of material reality, because material reality is emergent from this thing. It's like you need to go and sit down in meditation for a very long time and then look from the point of view of spirit or consciousness or whatever back at materiality is the way to make sense of it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even agree on what consciousness is. Like, there is no,
Mm.
you know, nobody's come together and finally accepted this one definition of it, because we can't
It's
define it.
such a hard question, isn't it? Yeah. Like
Yeah.
somebody pulled this on a. I was a guest on a podcast, and it was like 2 in the morning because of the time difference, and I'd had a couple of glasses of wine, and the host is like, "So, what is the nature of God?" And I'm like, "Jesus Christ! Did you just ask me that? How? What do you mean? What is the nature of God? Come on!"
I would have said, "Oh, I know the nature of God. It's me. It's you." You know, I like, that's an easy one for me because of an experience
Well, yeah,
like
I,
that.
I
Like,
probably said
yeah,
something like that, but
I
you
would
know,
be like,
it's
without, I
such a
would not know.
loaded,
It is.
hard question to answer in a way that's actually accessible to people, isn't it? So, but nearly segued us onto your NDE, where was that the end of your kind of Christian
No, no, I mean, like,
worldview? Is that
so I
what?
was before that. Like, I had walked away when I was, the last time I was in church, I think I was 8. And I said to my nana and papa, like, "You guys are hypocrites. You guys say one thing in church and then you guys act different outside of church." And I got a whooping like no other for that.
Mm,
And then I was like, "This is bogus." Um, so I got away from that really early, but that fear had been instilled in me that they
mm,
take you and they make you watch this video, right? As a kid, that's like this terrifying nightmare video of like the rapture happening and like all everyone getting left behind. And it's like they take the kids to the slumber party and they have them sleep over in the church and they show them this video and tell you how you're gonna burn in hellfire, and Satan's gonna, you know, own your soul, to like 6 year olds, you know, and it's abuse. Like, I mean, it's
yeah.
horrible. It stayed with me, you know, and I was doing things like reading tarot, for since I was 12. I've been reading tarot for that long, for gosh, what, 34 years now. And you know, I had always just been able to do that, but I always had this like nagging kind of little, you know, in the back of my head, like, but what if? Like, but what if? They're right. And then when I had my near death experience, which was in 2016, I lost half of the volume of my blood due to an ectopic pregnancy rupture, and I died for 6 minutes. Like, I was clinically dead. Like, I saw, and I knew I was dying. Like, I was aware this feeling came over my body, and I just knew what it was. And you know, and then I was just popped out of my body, and I just popped out, and I was just watching everything, and I had zero attachment to myself. Like, I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, oh, kind of could have probably gone a little longer. 38 years old, probably could have done better, but whatever. You know, completely blasé. And then I heard the crash, you know, like the machine start to flatline. And then they started doing the crash cart stuff on me. And then the doctor was like, "Call it," you know, whatever. And then this one guy, he said, "But like, right, already, like, she's only 38." And this doctor made a comment about me that was really rude and unnecessary. Um, Saying, like, you know, I'd had some history stuff with me, like, you know, I'd had some addiction issues when I was younger, and that is in my medical record. And he said, "Oh, what do you expect? She used to just be a junkie, whatever." Not, and I wasn't. That's what he said, but that's not true. But and I was like, "Was that?" I thought, "Was that necessary?" I wasn't mad. Normal me would have been pissed, right? And like, but I was like, that wasn't really necessary. But that's important because I was able to verify he said that when I came back. So at this point, I'm flatlined. I'm They're not working on me anymore. So I either there's a problem with death, the definition of death, right? Or I heard it despite being no longer alive, right? And as a former scientist of 20 years, when I came back, I had to know right away. And so that was the first thing out of my mouth once I was able to breathe and catch my breath that had been withheld for 6 minutes. I asked him, and he just looked at me like mortified, like absolutely, like, what do you mean, what? And I'm like, "Did you say that?" And he's like, and I'm like, just tell me if you said it. I need to know. And he's like, I'm sorry. And I was like, I was hoping he'd say no. I was hoping he would say no, because then I would have been able to say, okay,
Then you don't have to deal with the
yeah,
worldview challenge, right?
right.
I was the same with remote viewing. I tried it because I didn't want it to work, and then it did, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I was like, oh crap, now I gotta reconcile what I just experienced, because I didn't believe
Hmm.
that it was
Which
true.
is a big job, isn't it? Just going back to your crazy traumatic video that they showed you about getting left behind in the rapture.
Yeah.
Josh, you grew up in a pretty crazy church too. Did you have that video too?
I mean, there's a popular book series called Left Behind,
Yes, that's what it's called.
which is a
Oh my God.
which is a specifically those authors' interpretation of what would happen in the modern day with the Book of Revelation, and it's where a lot of the conspiracy theories about uh, body chips and things like that being the mark of the beast, and that was actually played into a lot of some of the more hysterical aspects of COVID, is people started inferring that to being, oh, there's going to be a microchip in there. But that really, when you mentioned that, it kind of touched a note for me, because I've had a couple of experiences in my childhood where my parents were either like out in the yard doing something, or just I'd come up from the basement or come down from my room and look around, nobody would be there, and I'd feverishly look for piles of clothes and start to panic and worried that I wasn't good enough and had missed the rapture.
Yep.
So that's when people talk about religious trauma, like that's specifically those kind of experiences come to my mind most strongly.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely resonate with that. That is one of those fears I had too. Like just being a kid and looking up at the sky like a thunderstorm coming my way, like a normal phenomenon, right? A weather phenomenon. But my little mind at that age, after seeing that and being told that over and over again, would look up and be like, "Oh no, it's the end of the world," like, so the rapture coming, and it was terrifying. And it sounds silly now as an adult, right? But at that time, that's such an impressionable age that leaves a mark on you. And I carried that literal guilt of like, what if, you know, uh, until I was 38 years old, and I died, and I went on the other side and I experienced what happens, at least for 6 minutes. I can't speak to what happened after that. I wasn't there, but those 6 minutes was like all I needed. I came back, and after I got that confirmation from the doctor and I realized, oh crap, I got to process what the hell just happened. The first thing that I felt was the most utter relief of like all that Christian indoctrinated guilt was gone. Like that is not it. There's none of that. It's absolute crap, and it's all about just
Wow. Just the whole thing
the whole all of it.
evaporated.
Dude, gone.
Wow, that must have felt
I have
great.
no I don't give a you know what about that anymore. Like people come at me and say, "Oh, that's the devil talking to you. Your soul." I'm like, dude, my soul's good. I already like trust me. I know. Like I've been there. Don't try to talk to me about something you don't even know what you're talking about, because I do. And I know no one else can. I can't impart that on other people. I wish I could, but I can't. And
Have
that's
you
okay.
noticed it's only ever the devil talking to you when it's specifically something that person doesn't agree with?
Yes, always. Of course. Yeah. It's hilarious that way. And it's, I like to have fun now. I'll be like, oh, I know he's my best friend, like that kind of stuff. Like I don't. I'll just play into it, because like that's delusional. If that's what you really think, like if you're living your life in fear, you're not living. Like, and that sucks for you. I'm sorry for you. I hope you figure that out. But you're not gonna put that on me. Not ever again. Like it's not happening. And it's about like I always tell people the thing I got, and it's lame and cliche as it sounds, was like, are you a good person? That's what matters. Like at the end of the day, you judge yourself. Like you're judging yourself. You're the one that came for whatever reason to do whatever things, and you know what that was once you die. And or not transition, and then you're left with what did you do here? And if you're a good person, yeah, you're fine, man. And if you're not a good person, you're gonna have to come back to this crappy ass place. Like, good, have fun with that. This place is
You're
terrible.
gonna have to?
You might. I don't know, because that's not what happened for me. But like, that's what I like. I don't know how to say, but when you're in that state, you just know, if you ask a question in your mind, you just, as you're asking it, the answer is already there for you. So like that's one part about religion is almost right. Like when they say when you die, you get all the knowledge of the universe, whatever. That's misleading because it's not like that. It's not like all of the knowledge is just like put into you all of a sudden. It's like you have to ask a question. And then as soon as that question's asked, you get the answer. So now, 8 years later, 9 years later, I'm like, I should have asked this, I should have asked that. But like you can't, you don't know what to ask if you don't know what to ask, right? Like at the time. So I the things that I did ask was about tarot, about like my, fringe beliefs, those things, and you know, um, and I got the answer, and that's all I needed. So I'm good now. I don't worry about that stuff anymore, and it's lovely. I'll tell you that. It is lovely. So I go about my
So,
day trying to help other
or
people, with their trauma.
I gotta know more about the tarot just before we move on
Yeah.
there. Like, what was the question and what was the answer? Does the universe recommend a
I'm not
particular
going to
death?
hell for tarot. That was what I said in my head. In my
Not gonna hell, right?
So I guess I didn't go. Yeah, I guess I'm not going to hell for tarot. And then there was like a laughter and like a
Mm.
how silly, like and then just a knowing. So, and at that point I was like, duh, like it's like of course it was not a thing. Like this is all to keep people. I mean, I truly believe now, and like a little conspiracy theorist here. I'm not gonna lie. For warning, I feel like all of this is designed to keep us from knowing what we're capable of doing, um, through fear. Because if we were able to know that we are literally God, God's us, like what I learned from that experience was this: like God is a mirror, and that mirror shattered into 8 billion pieces, and each one of us is a fragment of that mirror. We're all the same. The color, the race, the orientation, whatever, the filters that are placed on us to keep us in the state of like divide. If we're
I mean,
gonna
it wouldn't work, right? It wouldn't. The illusion wouldn't work, right? If we knew that, it would be no
right,
fun.
right, I guess, yeah, like it wouldn't work. But the thing is, and like everyone's like, I wish. Why is everything so crappy? It's like, well, why are you so crappy to everybody? Like, why don't we look at like the one thing that we can't do collectively as a species is get along. We just can't. Like people just can't let things go. Um, and that's literally the answer I'm 100% convinced of that, and we can't do it because there's gonna be always somebody that's like, nope, nope, like just not playing the game, right? You can be
It's
nice all you
almost
want.
a necessity because the second, like hypothetically, is assuming we could just snap our fingers and everybody would have this same immediate knowledge and be on the same page of the universe is mental and we're all fractals and emanations of divine asking itself, who am I and what am I? It's like as soon as the answer is, oh, I'm this, it'll all just snap back and now we're all just that and we won't
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
big
we would cease
diverse
to
different
exist.
world.
Yes, we would go poof, literally. Like that is, yeah. I mean, so I guess there's some, I guess, value to it, right? It's just maybe a little hard to see it once like you see how petty things are sometimes, right? And it's like, really? Like, man, you guys, there's so much other stuff out there to do than to waste time on this or that. But, again, that's not my path. That's your path. So I was given some relief for whatever reason so that I can
Mm.
go about my life and like not live that way anymore. And I'm good.
Early on in my own spiritual path, I got, I went through the small n nihilism phase, just like, wait, just everything's lost meaning. Like, shit. I was like, where am I going to find some answers? And I'm like, I know. These NDE people get some good gnosis. Wonder if I could like just die temporarily. Can I- got some friends who are medics. Maybe they'll just like stop my heart for
Oh,
me.
like
Just
flatliners.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can flatliner it. Yeah.
Just to, I mean, obviously I didn't, but the thought crossed my mind of just like, yeah, can we just like arrange that, just die temporarily, go and get some cosmic gnosis, and then come back and be like, oh, now I have all the answers.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
fortunately didn't find a way to do that safely or legally.
I think at the near death experience, like group too, and like I'll get hate for this, but like I think a lot of them, there's a lot that I feel like are, um, they're like there's a agenda behind it, right? Um, and those are easy for me to pick out. I don't really hang out in that group because that was just like I don't. I don't, that's great that that happened to you too, or not really, but you know what I mean? But like, but mine was personal, and I have to believe that yours was too, right? Like, so when I hear everybody kind of
Mm.
saying the same, like, I don't know, kind of symbolic stuff that we're taught, in the church, I have a hard time because I didn't see any of that. Like, there was none of it. There was no religious, nothing at all. It was totally different than that. And I was just like, I was surprised by that actually. And when I came back, I was like, oh, it was nothing like that. It was completely, but
Well, like a lot
completely
of
clear.
transpersonal experiences are kind of subjective, and they are a
Right.
reflection of the person having the
Yep.
experience, right? So maybe the near-death experience is like no different, and that
I
your
don't,
the
I think that's
experiencer is going to
exactly it.
color it.
Yep. I believe that's it. I think that if you're somebody that's really religious, that it would probably be very jarring for you to show up and not see what you're expecting to see. So therefore it's probably going to be there for you.
I saw this really funny account. I think it was a YouTube video. I don't have the link, unfortunately, but there was a woman who'd had an NDE, and she was like up there and wherever it was she was, and Jesus came, and she was like, "Wait a minute, Jesus wasn't white. Who the hell are you?" Like, so she had this projection of like Western white guy Jesus with sandals, and was like, "What the hell is this? Come on, you're
Yeah.
not Jesus."
Yeah.
Like, it's just
I've
brilliant. Imagine being like, "Bullshit," in your
I've
NDE.
heard that
Wonderful.
before too. I've heard that. I've heard that from other people that say that they will play along to try to get you comfortable. I don't know who they are, but like and I was like, sure, why not? Anything at this point now, I believe anything's possible after that
Mm.
experience. I have no, I mean, not anything. Sometimes I hear people, I'm like, okay, you might want to go talk to somebody. But for the most part, like I think that, yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you're gonna get are what your consciousness expects, I guess, right? Like it's gonna be there to calm you down because it's a transition for sure. Like
Mm.
it's different. Like the weird thing for me was that when I realized I didn't have a head because I could see 360 degrees, and I was like, oh, because I don't have bones behind my eye socket. Oh my God, I don't have a head. Like, and I started to have that kind of understanding that like I didn't have a body anymore, but yet I still had some kind of boundary to me. It's really hard. And the other thing too is there's really no language here for us that can properly articulate the experience. So in my head, I know what happened, but I can't say it. I it's really frustrating actually, like because there's nothing to compare it to. So it's
That's
futile.
that's like more of the idea of subjectivity, isn't it? Is that you kind of got to project worldly concepts onto whatever this like metaphysical experience is to try and translate it, and it's always going to come up short.
Oh, very short, very very short. The closest I've gotten to it so far is in the Kabbalah, um, in with the Ein Sof and Adam, about him straddling the world, being big enough to straddle the world, because we're huge. Like that is one thing that our soul's huge. Like it could be as big as you wanted it to be. Like I don't know how else to put that, but I could have expanded or contracted it into any size or shape, and that was bizarre for me.
Remote
I've heard
viewed
quite a
Einsoff ones.
What was that?
I
oh
said I
yeah,
said we did a remote viewing target that was Einsoff ones.
yeah.
Wow.
So a blind
Um,
perception of it.
yeah,
I
What?
totally forgot about that.
it turned into this really weird experience where like in my perceptual space there was like this have you seen those pictures of like the biblically accurate angel where it's
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Ophanim, the big wheel of eyes?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
it was just like
Be
a
not
mental
afraid.
representation of one of those, but the big information that was most interesting to me anyways that came out of it was it the ineffable. You can't define it by its very nature. If it's something that's just vast and beyond human comprehension, the only way you can talk about it is in the form of a question.
Yeah.
So like it's a like from a math perspective, if you have an equation, you can't define it like it can't be 2 + 2 is 4 because that's not ineffable. The ineffable part is the x that you covering the whole range of possible numbers to solve for type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like it is. yeah, like again, it's impossible to state it properly. But I feel like if that's what you saw, and that's the feeling that you got from it, then I would say
Josh,
yeah.
was that when you got the Sermon of the Ineffable that was
Yeah, that's
like
why I
when you were
decided to
going, no,
call it.
but what about this? And the angel's like, no, because, and like it went on for a few, that was pretty cool.
Oh, did you
That
get
was a fun
talked
one.
to?
It's so much good fun doing these sessions blind because like the viewer will have no information at all. We're just like, there's a target, go see what you get. So there's no bias, there's no imagination going into these things.
Yeah.
I did this once with somebody. I was just teaching her about viewing technique, but I knew that it was Buddhist, and I gave him a huge Buddha statue to do, and he kind of like wandered off target a little bit and was like, "Wait, there's nothing here. Wait, it's not nothing, it's no thing." And he had like direct mental experience of the idea of no thing rather than like nothingness. And like amazing sort of insight experience totally by accident, but
Yep.
just because there's no like imagination or ego overlaying that direct knowing. It's really
Right.
cool
That is
approach.
cool. That's what my partner and I are doing that, right? We're doing something kind of similar now. He started studying hypnosis. Because I said I couldn't be hypnotized because in the past I was not able to, even with like trained medical hypnotherapists, couldn't do it. Nothing happened. Even with like electrodes, nothing was changing in my brain. But he did it first try. I was like, of course he did.
Is that
And
because you trust him?
yes, it is. That is exactly why. Yes. I trust him and I'm not scared that he's gonna make me like, squawk like a chicken when I wake up when I hear a weird noise. But that's what we've been doing, and he's been putting me under hypnosis and asking me to go contact certain spirits or whatever that I have nothing about at all. And so I guess I'm telling him stuff, and then we watch the tape, and then I go look it up, and it's a thing, and I'm like, what?
Awesome.
How is that crazy? So I
You
think it's
can
the same.
you could crank this up, get some blind remote viewing targets so he doesn't know about it and you don't. You'll just get like an ID number and be like, okay, here's where we're gonna go. And he can maybe ask you some questions, record it, and then you go and like find
Yeah,
that document. There's target
literally
pools
do
for
that.
thousands of these things. And then you can
That's
go open up the PDF and be like, oh wow, and then you
I
can
would
both
pee
have
my
your
pants.
mind blown.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
That feeling's amazing though, like when that happens, when you realize that the information that you saw or heard or I call it known, you were known, like it
Hmm.
became knowledge for you somehow. And when that is able to be verified, that is that's wild to me.
Yeah.
That's just really wild. I never get used to it. I mean, I like that. I like that it always,
It still surprises me that I've done it, even though I've done it such a lot and
right.
trained to be able to do it quite reliably. And I'm still like, oh, this is can't be real. This isn't going to happen. It didn't feel like anything weird was happening. I've just done junk, and then you get feedback, and it's like, whoa, shit, this is good, isn't it? Like, wow, it's
Yes.
always a surprise. Like,
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, and he made a meme that was like, if it's not startling, is it even really magic? Like, and I'm like, that's accurate. Like, it should be, because how we're raised and programmed to believe this certain set of rules, and that everything follows these rules, and we know now that that's not true. I mean, what like in 2022, what did we prove? Like, what did the Nobel Prize go to? Those scientists that proved that
the universe is not simultaneously
local.
local and real.
Yeah. Right. What the heck?
Yeah.
I've been saying
I
that.
think it's really adorable though, isn't it? When like you see mainstream science like just kind of tiptoeing around the edge of the stuff that like the yogis have been saying for thousands of years, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, they're
Yes.
coming along.
I know. I mean,
That's really cool.
so there's Dr. Dean Radin, who's like really
Hmm.
famous. Like he's all over. He's proving this stuff in lab now. Like he's been doing this for like for a long time, but nobody's, they just kept it kind of, nobody talked about it because it was not acceptable. Now it's becoming more mainstream, and platforms like YouTube, TikTok, well, until Sunday anyway, people have access to it now. It's like starting to change how things are going, I think, and I'm excited for that. And I saw a video with him, and I emailed him, and I was like, I really want to work with you, and he I do now. So it's amazing. I'm so stoked.
What have you been doing with Dean?
Oh, okay. Well, so his Institute of Noetic Science has some positions that are like, volunteer, right? Then that's how you get in. So I started off doing some cataloging for them for their library, their internal library. And then now I'm helping them create a curriculum for science classes that incorporates noetic science with traditional biology and life science. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. We'll just give it another 100 years and it'll be taught in schools.
I know. I mean, we're starting off like simple, like, hey, talk to the plants nicely and see if they grow better. That kind of thing. Like the water, how does the water crystallize after you listen to different types of music, those things, right?
Someone told me about an experiment that, because we were talking about the difficulty of like being in this field and our kids going to school, and it's like we don't want to lie to them, but we don't want them to get like burned at the stake either.
Yeah.
And he was saying his son had gone into school and done like a plant aura experiment where he like got people to feel you can kind of feel the energy around the plant, right? And then they yelled at the plant and were mean to it and felt the energy contract into it and that it was like much closer, and then they were nice to it and felt it. And like the lad was like 11, 12, 13 sort of age, and all his classmates were there and they were all feeling the plant aura and they were all pretty into it. So, I guess kids are still open-minded at that age. There's still some hope.
Can you
Right.
imagine in like 10 centuries or so from now, science has moved forward. This is like a mainstream thing, and now students are studying the experiment where we all got just yelled at plants and stuff, and now it's like, oh, these barbaric experiments.
I know.
It was
Yeah.
a very bad day for plant rights.
Yeah.
What was the guy's name? The one who was like threatening to set them on fire when he had the plants hooked up to a polygraph. It's
I
really
think that
famous
was
research.
it was either Ingo or Clive. It's either
Oh,
Baxter or
Baxter.
Barker.
Baxter. No, I mean Ingo didn't do
And
the experiment, but
to not
with
to
the
put any
fire. Yeah.
accomplishments under uh, L. Ron Hubbard's name, but he also did similar tomato plant
Mm.
experiments
Because they
Yeah,
in
found that
his
like
early
when
days.
he like struck a match near the plant and was like, "I'm gonna burn you, I'm gonna get you," and the plant's like, "Ah!"
yeah,
and
there's a
Venus
Swiss,
reading off scale.
yeah, they're in Sweden. They did a study with this where they started knocking plants off of a shelf every day, right? Like just knocking them over, and they
Savage.
started
What, just
to,
like one each day?
yeah, then they started to lean, they
Oh,
started to
that's
grow
cold.
leaning backwards towards their plant mate in the next pot over to try to keep themselves from being attacked.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
that's
like, that's so
horrible.
mean, but like,
I feel really bad for the plants.
I know, I know, I know.
You know,
No, but
vegetarianism is just for people who can't hear the plants screaming.
right. I said I live in LA, right? So like, and I
Oh,
was like, you
yikes.
guys haven't heard how plants scream? And they're like, stop. I'm
Mm.
like, I'm dead serious, guys. They don't believe me. I'm like, all right, have fun with that.
I grow as much of our food as I can in the summer, and like I always like talk to my plants when I'm about to slice bits off them and cut them down and pull them out and stuff, and I feel really bad. It's
Yeah.
kind of silly,
But
but
no, they're all
I do.
conscious, right? And the difference is
Yeah.
because, and that's the thing, is because we look at consciousness as you gotta have a brain, okay, well,
No.
whatever. No, you don't, because like there's a man that has no brain, right? Do you guys know about that guy?
With the hollow brain where 95%
Yeah,
is
like he has
missing.
like
Do you
only
know
the
the thing I love about that the most is that he's an accountant.
Oh my God, are you serious? I did not know that part. All right.
Or a bookkeeper or something. The French one.
Yeah, yeah, like he has a
Hmm.
hollow, like, yeah, it's just like the cerebellum in the back.
Yeah. It was
That's
like hydrocephalus, and there's
yeah,
just like
yeah,
a huge. Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and he's living life, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean,
It's pretty much normal. Nobody even noticed.
yeah,
Yeah.
so again, like we have
Other than being an accountant.
conception, like we we have these ideas that, I tell my students too, I teach science, right, in college, and I say to my students, like, you know, this is, I, I'm not sure this is correct, this is what we believe right now, but, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what I'm talking about is that science is wrong all the time. And we have to correct ourselves all the time. Like every semester, I have to go back and reteach something because they've made a new advancement, new discovery
Yeah.
every year.
I
I'm
mean,
like,
if you're not doing that, you're not doing science, are you?
no, I'm like, so be willing to let your mind be changed in the face of the proper evidence, right? But don't be, these are not hard lines here. Like this is our human understanding right now as it stands. Like, and look at where we were 500 years ago to now. Like in 500 years from now, we're gonna look archaic to our future selves, right? So don't forget that. And they're just like, oh, Miss Stone, you're so crazy. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. But they like it. They like it. They're like, that's
Yeah.
great. Then I have
You're
like a
planting
couple.
seeds in there. You're planting positive seeds in their
I
minds,
mean,
aren't you?
these
Like,
are adults.
it's
Adults. I
worth
work with
doing.
the immigration population. I work with the immigrant population that's coming over from Ukraine and Armenia. So these people are coming, and I'm saying this stuff. They're like, "What are you, this crazy girl?" I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that this is facts because right now it might be, but like, look at what happened with DNA and fingerprints, right? I mean, the fingerprint thing is killing me. Like, I can't believe that. You guys know about that, right? The fingerprint situation.
Don't think so.
Oh my God. Okay, so you know how we
Can't
use
put
Was
my
this
thumb on
like
it.
you can have two the same?
so no two peoples are the same, right? Okay, that's a widely accepted belief, right? Absolutely not. If for that to be true, we would have had to test every single person that ever existed on this planet and compare their prints to say that. Okay, I never even questioned that. I worked in forensics. That was my first science job. I went to crime scenes and stuff. They can't even use them anymore as identifying evidence in court because guess what happened? This guy, um, Brian Mayfield, he was arrested for an attack in Spain. He was in a courtroom. He's a lawyer. He was in a courtroom arguing a case in front of a judge, immigration court in New York, when this attack occurred in Barcelona. And he was on camera in the courtroom, and they still arrested him and kept him prisoner, with no court because it was under Patriot Act, whatever. And it ruined his life. His like whole family was, they burnt the people burned his house down. All kinds of horrible stuff happened to him because the person that did it had a same fingerprint as him. And
Wow.
even the FBI's Department of Fingerprint Analysis, okay, they looked at that print 5 times and kept saying it was his. It wasn't until his lawyer finally submitted it under a different name and said, check it out, that they said, oh, doesn't match. Yeah. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Then
So
again,
like
the DNA
that's
technology is so good
yeah,
these days, you don't need fingerprints.
right. But I mean, how many people were convicted on that, right? You know what I mean? In the past, with just a fingerprint.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, it's just like right now, DNA is a thing, but who knows? So it's just like, keep your, like, I always tell people, keep yourself, ready to accept some new data if it comes up, because we just don't know anymore. And like with psychic stuff, I mean, what mothers know when their kids are hurt or something's wrong.
Oh yeah.
Why? Why? Is it psychic? Is it, what? Is it entangled? Are they the same thing? Is it
Oh,
psychic?
and I get very testy when people start invoking quantum
Quantum, quantum,
entanglement to
quantum, quantum.
explain. Oh, don't say the Q word. I
What
don't
do you
like
think?
it.
Yeah, so this is what
You're
I'm
only
hearing all
allowed
the
to say
time.
that if you're
So
actually talking about physics.
what do you think? So what do you think? Then what is your opinion on that? Like, because I hear that all
Well,
the time.
the theories, quantum theories of consciousness are materialist theories, right? Which are trying to posit that consciousness and non-locality is somehow emergent from matter, and like the quantum layer of physical reality is where things get weird. So people are like, oh well, that's weird and ineffable, and this is weird and ineffable, so they must be the same thing because nothing exists that isn't in material reality, and it's
Yeah.
just so dumb. And like, it's okay, fine, it's good, it's useful because it's providing like a stepping stone for people to come over from materialist science and be like, oh, that's interesting, and they talk about all their theories, and Penrose and Hameroff and their microtubules. I
Oh,
like that theory
I love
because
that theory.
right, because you've got the consciousness thing, and then that's how it like plugs into material reality, rather than it being like, oh, if we get a really good microscope and look at atoms really hard, we'll find the magic consciousness beings living inside the matter, which is just like, it's philosophically stupid.
Yeah.
Apologies to anybody who really likes that theory, but I hate it.
I mean,
So there. Sorry,
I do.
that's my
I
rant.
feel
It's a good
that.
job. This is the end of the show now that I'm just
Yeah.
going off on an unhinged rant.
I love it. I love that. I love
He's
that.
been quantumly entangled with this issue for some time now.
Fuck you.
I'm glad I asked because I feel the same. It's that lens we're putting on it, right? We're trying to make, but I mean, I guess at the same time, I can give him a little credit for at least trying to understand. But
Yeah. Well,
that's good.
if all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Right.
It's if
Yeah.
all you got is materialist science, it's a logical place to look. If that's
Yeah.
the size of the reality you can fit in your worldview, you know, and if you've had reason, like all of us have, to think that there's a lot more to reality than atoms and molecules and quarks and the quantum field and stuff, and that this is all just
Uh,
like part of this little
oh,
corner.
I want to ask you guys really quick. Have you guys seen the guy his name is Danny Goller, and he has an experiment right now that is showing you the binary code that's running in the background of everything, and it's replicatable. You guys should
Is
try it
this the
out.
guy who took DMT and looked at laser
Yeah,
speckles?
yeah, but like I don't need the laser. I mean, I don't need the DMT like that. I just see it anyway. But like when he said
In
that,
laser speckle or just all the time?
I can see it without the laser. Not all the time, no. Not all the
No.
time.
Hmm.
Certain I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe lighting. I'm not sure. Maybe it's my my
Hmm.
state of mind. But he's showing it now and like been able to record it. So it's quite interesting. So I'm like leaning
Oh,
towards
could
the fact
you
that
share a link
yeah,
with us of the
absolutely.
recording? Because I saw that and I was like, well, I don't know, I doubt it. Like,
Yeah.
it seemed a little bit like there was going to be a more prosaic explanation other than like, it's the source code of the Matrix leaking out of the, you know, I mean, shit, maybe.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was the laser projecting it. Maybe it's some kind of like serial number for it at first, right? That's what I thought too. I was, I try to debunk things too. I'm still
Yeah.
scientific. I still
Yeah,
have that.
totally. Same.
Uh,
Well,
but
laser speckles like a really interesting phenomenon, but I think it is quite well understood in terms of like
yeah,
quantum optics. If it's something to do with the interference pattern you get
right.
from the imperfections in the laser diode or something, isn't it? Because like if you move it around, the actual noise pattern is the same, isn't it? Like you move the dot and
Yeah,
the noise, and there's some I can't remember the science
yeah.
of it. I
These
knew it
are
once, and I don't
characters,
know
though.
now.
These are
Yeah,
characters
yeah, I
that
know. Yeah, it's a weird
like
thing to see in there, and it
it
works
is.
with diffraction gratings, right?
It's
Which is
weird.
even
Yeah,
weirder. But is
yeah.
that like
I
the
love it.
mind projecting it? Is that like scrying? Is it just special
You-
laser scrying? You know, like what's
yeah,
is it?
oh my gosh, you just came up with a new thing, laser scrying. Oh my God, that's
Dude, all
amazing.
the kids are going to be blinding themselves on TikTok. You see
It's
the
still not.
No,
universe?
they only for a day.
Wow.
It's only one day. It's not as. It's just like the people that go stare at the sun. Okay, so like I'm pretty sure.
Laser scrying. I'm about to buy like 1,000 cheap laser pens and a
I have,
huge markup
just
on
the
them.
laser levels.
Scrying laser.
You can see
Yeah.
it like I have a
Yeah,
laser
no.
level. You can
It's a
see it with
special
that too.
scrying laser. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You got to make one now.
Mine's expensive. It's got obsidian in there. It's scrying
The
obsidian is in the
obsidian
laser.
core.
Now it's $100. Oh yeah.
Nice.
This is great.
The new invention, man. You just came up with $1 million idea.
Dude.
That's great. I'll buy one.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious. I would.
I'm
I
genuinely
probably
going to try that now, actually. That's kind of interesting.
yeah, check it out. I mean,
Because yeah,
I
laser speckle is it's almost a good scrying medium, isn't it? It's like
it is.
smoke or a
Yeah, there's
blank
that.
wall or
Sure.
something. Yeah.
You can scry in anything pretty
Hmm?
much. So, if you know how to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I think
totally.
that's
I
awesome.
mean,
People would buy that. You should do that.
we did an episode of the show with our friend Coral, who has like it was on spiritual tech, like all the gadgets and
Oh
gizmos and
yeah.
magic thingy bobs and all the crap that we accumulate. I think it was just me and her. And I was like, I don't like props. I don't have tools.
I
I don't
was
buy
there.
anything. Were you there? Oh, you were
Yes,
here without video. Yeah.
as
Oh
always.
yeah, I remember editing your orb.
I am the perpetual floating head in the corner.
That would be
Nice.
creepy if you weren't so great.
I would be stoked to see that.
But yeah, as spiritual practitioners, we're just used to weird disembodied
There's
floating
the
heads. So this is like
shout
totally
out in
cool.
the comments if you see my weird floating head in your next psychic experiences. Go.
Well, I don't
Oh,
know
like
what
that woman making the scrying video where you turned up in her
Oh, that
mirror.
was yeah, that was funny. I was doing I was just dabbling, seeing how to scry, and I was watching a YouTube video that was what was it, 9 years old, and I'm going through it, and she's talked about it now. Like this last half of the video is her just recording her mirror and trying it, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. Why not? I'll just put my consciousness through my phone real quick, looking through the mirror. And right as I get that in my mind and start thinking about it, she goes, there's a man in the mirror, late 20s, early 30s. I was like, oh shit, I broke time again. Let me just
oh
pull
my God.
myself backwards. And then
Oh,
she goes, and he's gone from the mirror, and now we're going to.
no way. No way. That's crazy. Well, one thing I can tell you guys from the near death is there is no time. Time is not
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one of the
Time's totally
hardest
fake, but
things. Like I can't possibly explain it, but it was like,
I'm
oh,
kind of getting used to it
everything's happening all at
because
once somehow.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
made
Well, there's no
perfect sense,
space either. It's like
but now,
everything everywhere all at once in the
yeah,
singularity, and then some sort of wibbly wobbly fractally thing. I
Quantum.
don't know. Yeah, quantum. Woo, yeah. Let's do the jazz hands, quantum jazz hands.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really that I know now for sure. I'm like, oh yeah, time's BS. Like we made that up. Yeah. So but
Yeah.
we run by it here, but like in reality, it's like no, it's fun
I think
times.
a
Like
lot of the problems you can get in a real twist thinking about causality from the like thinking about normal linear time causality and then being like, but how can this be? And coming up with all these complex ways that it might work. And it's like, no, the causality is out of time. That's why weird coincidences and synchronicities and odd stuff happens in this way, because the causal factor is not in linear time. And then when you start thinking about, you got your timeline going along like that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you've just got something that comes from the side and just goes in anywhere. And
yep,
it's like, oh, this is happening, and everything is much
yep,
more comfortable. And the time loops go away, and the causal paradoxes go away, and everything becomes like, oh, that's okay. That's where
yeah,
my free will is, up there, outside of space and time.
yes. Oh my gosh, yes, that is a rabbit hole thought. Yes, I I find myself in these
This is good.
all the time.
This is late now. We're 10 minutes
Yeah,
over
sorry.
time. We're gonna get really weird now. No,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Well, I really appreciate this opportunity. You guys are fascinating. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to come and
Yeah.
talk to you guys.
Well, I think you'll have to come back again one day and do
Definitely.
this
Yeah,
again.
I would love to.
I've enjoyed this so much.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I would love to. If you guys want a reading, I will happy to do it. I don't need to be near you. I can do it on my own and send it to you, whatever you like. And I would
Ooh.
love to get some tips on that. That experiment you said we should do, my partner and I, because that's
Oh yeah.
fun.
Well, we'll chat after, and then we could do a video presentation about it if you want, because it's like almost exactly what you're doing now, but just with like a couple extra steps, so it's no more
Cool.
effort for you.
Yeah,
Sweet.
that's great. I would
Cool.
like that. I like challenges.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to get back to the listeners on that one. So, the Reverend Dr. Annalise Stone, thank you ever so much for joining us. This has been totally
you.
awesome, and we will hopefully catch up with you again soon.
Okay,
Goodbye.
thanks so much. Bye.
Messages from other dimensions, penetrating sucking aliens. Have you ever felt like the physicalist, right?
Have you ever had an 50 right up your ass, which I'm not sure.
There's something that started to